Today, I'm here to talk to you about choices, particularly women's choices, or rather the lack thereof, because women have been conditioned not to see the choices that lay ahead of them. I was brought up in a moderately well-off family, firstborn child, a sister to two younger brothers. I lived in a society where you're meant to be a lady, and a lady should know her place. Yet at the same time, I was exposed to forward thinking back home. I struggled with this for most of my teenage years. On the one hand, I had to be the good daughter, yet at the same time, I was a rebellious teenager. I battled with the idea that I had to conform and adapt, or otherwise, there could be the possibility that I would be shunned off. At the age of 18, I met a great guy. I fell in love. It was intense. Months later, I found out I was pregnant. I took all the precautions, trust me, I did. Yet there it was, 3 pregnancy tests confirmed this. As a child, I attended church school. I went to catechism, and I did all that I thought was, meant to be done as the good Catholic. Terminating this pregnancy was not an option for me. When we told his friend, he suggested we go to his country to have an abortion. I could not even begin to fathom the idea of it all. There I was, I had sex, I'm pregnant. I had no choice. My then boyfriend, today husband, said that he'd stand by me no matter what the choice was. I was perplexed. I made it very clear he could walk out of this relationship. He had a whole myriad of options and paths for him to choose from. Not for me, not on this one. I had no choice. The culture I grew up in taught me that there's an order of things. You go to school, then college, university, you find a great job, you buy your dream house, you get married, you have children. That's the order of the way things are meant to happen. But there I was in a situation where this order was completely jumbled up. This was not meant to happen, but I had no choice. I dared to have sex, and now I'm pregnant. Deal with it, I told myself. The moment I realized that I did not have a choice was a life turning point for me. I was a privileged white woman that was pregnant, yet I did not have to face half the hardship that all the women around me were facing, all the other teen mums. But I was very much well aware of that fact. Years later, and perhaps a little bit more mature, I read for law and I became a family and human rights lawyer. I then went on to found an NGO fighting for women's rights, specifically fighting for victims of domestic violence, rape, and human trafficking, because I could not any longer see how women were suffering in my society. I could not believe the hundreds of stories that I heard. All that should not have been, they were experiencing. They were battered, broken, lost, confused, lonely. They were in a situation where love meant hurt, where the freedom was shackled, where the bodies were abused and exploited. They did not have a choice, they told me. Some felt that this was all their fault because this is the choice that they made. Many cried and blamed themselves as to how could this have happened to me. Some ended up homeless, without family, without friends, because the person that claimed to love them made sure that nobody believes them or that their children were taken away from them. Some ended up in a situation where their whole body had no control over it because they kept on being pregnant by their abusive partners. Some were bought and sold again for a man's pleasure. Some felt broken from head to toe, not only physically, but also emotionally, to the point that they felt their only way out was suicide. And they said that the system that was supposed to be there to protect them did not believe them. They felt that this is all part of the way that they behaved because they were promiscuous. At that point in time, I felt I had to go back and look back into history. And that is the point where I started reading. In Greek mythology, Prometheus, a demigod, creator of man, steals fire from the sky and brings it down to earth. Zeus, angered by this decision, sends a gift, a woman called Pandora. He sends her as a gift to man with a jar that she was ordered not to open. Curiosity, having, taken the best of her, she opens the jar, and at that point in time, the immortal life of man is no more. Because of a woman's choice, man's immortality had to enter the cycle of birth, life, struggle, and death. Needless to say that the story of Pandora finds itself into the mythology of the Abrahamic religions. This time Eve, sent to earth as an afterthought after the world of man was created, was equally ends up in a situation as Pandora and ends up with the same fate. This time, God banishes man and woman from the Garden of Eden because they dare to eat from the tree of knowledge. And once again, the perfect life for men was ruined because of a woman's choice. What follows are centuries questioning women's capability and women's choices, because women's choices are a threat to men, and therefore they have to be subdued and controlled. Our history is full of pieces doubting women's capabilities, our ability to reason, our ability to hold a position in society, which rights, if any, we should have, which jobs, if any, we can have, whether we can have the right to vote, name it. At some point in time, somewhere, and still till today, we still question this. And we question this question is only limited for women. We don't question men's individuality. We don't question men's choices. The curse of Eve and Pandora has been haunting women for the centuries and has been reinforced by religion, laws, and social structure. And the achievements of women's rights only came after women stood up and fought for their rights, such as the right to vote. But this is not the case for the social expectations that have been so ingrained and normalized. This is much harder to change. And that brings me back to my own personal experience and the word choice. I was a young teen mum, but I was privileged, unlike the women that I met in my life. So what about them? They were told that she should just leave. She should have known better. Just walk away, honey, it's your fault, lump it. That's the consequence and the price you have to pay for it. She was drunk. Look at the way she was dressed. She was gagging for it. You see, we women are coached all our lives to take the blame and be blamed for other people's actions. We still continue to live in a patriarchal society, where from a young age, women are taught that there's a limited number of possible futures for them. You have to conform, or else. Having the ability to make a choice means that women can be many things, because women are not one thing. But there are things that we are not. We are not punching bags expected to keep quiet, forgiving and suffer in silence. We are not a piece of meat available to be sold and bought for the pleasure and use and abuse, at the blessing of laws and uninterested authorities for somebody's profit. And yes, We are not two-legged incubators that are duty bound by our gender and our societal norms to sacrifice our lives, our bodies, our physical and mental health, our social and psychological well-being to altar of the ignorance and misogyny. So where do we go from here? We need to foster a culture where women's ability to make the right choices for themselves is not questioned. We need to foster a culture where women are not taught from a young age to see limited choices in their lives that are bound by societal and gender norms. We need to foster a culture where the ability of freedom to make one choice for oneself becomes the norm. Thank you.